What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my chess journey. Today I have my companion Basil with me, checking out the game. So hopefully between the two of us, we can get a win. Without further ado, let's get back into chess.com and see if I've learned anything this week, shall we? I have practiced a lot of different openings, and the main thing I realized is I want to stick to one opening and learn that very well. And what I'm going to do is do this kind of opening where I try to control the center as much as possible. So let's go back to that instead of trying some kind of radical, more complex openings. And we're white on this one, so let's play the Queen's Gambit if the opponent allows. We talked a bit about it. It would involve sending this, sorry, can't draw arrows today. It would involve sending this out, which we're gonna do. If they take, then we happily take the center. If they don't, then we can think about the options, depending on what they play. A lot of times at this level they take. He did not take, interesting. So he protects this pawn with the knight. Do we hate this? I think we kind of do. I mean, in general, we can't punish it, and you know, even bringing out the queen is not going to help us there. We do have this option, but I think overall I'm just going to send out the knight. And again, trying to like play some basic stuff, not going super wild. But this sets us up nicely with the knight support there. Now, before we play something like this, that would kind of hinder our development, right? So before, if we feel we have to play this move, I would always try to send out. Again, my arrows really suck today, sorry. I would really always try to send my bishop beyond this pawn before closing it up. And my opponent taking a lot of time to think, even in this early move. So when he takes that, he opens the center for us in some ways. Now he can take, right? And this is a position, I haven't studied this very well. I don't know if this is like still good for us. The only thing he's threatening with this would be, no, going here. I would hate it because then you're forced to take with the king, and we don't like that. So I think now, in hindsight, I'm not happy with that development. But I'm gonna take here. Again, this is very noob level, right? We're in the 400 elo, so even if our play is not optimal, we can still make it work if we think things through and try to be principled. One of the things that I have picked up in this is, actually, let's go to this view. Sorry about that, guys. One of the things that I picked up recently is try to be more principled about castling early on, as early as possible. So now he's X-raying my knight. I don't expect him to actually go for that, even if he moves his knight. So I think what I'm going to do in this position is to actually castle and then look to activate my rook on this file. Also trying to get my terminology right. I'm sorry that, sometimes I mess up my words here when I try to say file or row. I know the right terminology is file for the vertical and ranks for the horizontal. So I'll do my best there. Now, we know he's not going to take here because we can take back for free. Well, no, sorry. It's not that we can take back for free, but when we take back and he takes with queen, we have knight. So we can kind of forget about that for now. Let's go back to our original development plan. How do we want to develop here? I'm thinking that this is not terrible, but I kind of like this. My thinking is, I've modified my thinking a little bit, trying to put pressure on the king's pawns and surroundings more than the queen side. One thing I was doing a lot was like trying to put a lot of pressure on queen side, and I'm not sure why I was doing that. I think it makes a lot more sense to try to pressure king side, and having this diagonal threatened seems, like the best move. So he pushes back, that's fine, we can still go back, right? And if he goes here, then we still have other moves possible. I'm not worried about it. And he would be jeopardizing his pawn structure to do so. He, despite everything, goes ahead and you know, he actually does that. Now, one thing we could consider is trading our knight for this if we wanted to. However, the big nope about that is the file that opens up. So we're not gonna do that. Instead, pull back, right? He can't lock down our bishop. There are some positions where that's actually possible, and I think we've done it here in the videos one time, but he's not in a position to do that. So what is he trying to achieve with this move? And I always try to think, if the opponent had one more move right now, what would they do, right? And I mean, with this, he does have a lock on the rook potentially later on. But here there's just takes, right? So in principle, we're not super scared about that. Instead, we can look to maybe pressure this. And something like this is always possible, where you get to this point and you have a check on the king, and then you also have this square protected. So let's start working towards that. And then you also have this, the semi-open files, right? Trying to pick up some of the lingo again. So he has this. Are we worried about that in particular? I mean, it does add pressure, but it's nothing that we have to tend to immediately. We still have this open, which I'm very much looking at. Can he stop us after this point? He could do something like this, but in any case, we just get into our little perch there, right? I think is this technically called an outpost, this kind of position? Or is that only when you have pieces around you to protect you, or pawns? He's not really threatening anything outside of my pawn, so I'm gonna go for this. Now this is check on the king. Well, okay, he blunders his queen. Alright, that's a +6 now for us. This is why, you know, sometimes this move will get you some good wins. That c7 move. Okay, so now we just have to move back. Our bishop is just like thinking about what's the position we like best for it. And I am now actually thinking about keeping it on this side, perhaps. I'm gonna bring it down to here. Oh, I'm totally misclicked. I actually meant to go down here. I've just blundered my bishop. So, you know, I'm talking shit at the opponent for blundering a piece. And there I go and blunder one of my own. But he doesn't see it. Pull it back. Now, he's got this, right? So we just got to be careful because this... I was going to say we can't take back now. However, we do have this, which I think is our move right now. So he can take with rook. I think I'm okay just living with that. I don't love it, but instead, what we can do is do this move that forces his rook to move. See what he does in that case. And when he moves his rook, one thing we can also think about doing is place our own rook here, so it's X-raying the king through those. We're always going to take this trade. His rook for a bishop, very positive trade overall. And the good news for us as well is, so, okay, now let's do this. And we got, oops, 2 big files open here to pressure. Very nice. We can always put his king in check if we wanted him to move it, but I don't know if we do want to go for that. I think I'm just gonna activate my other rook. There's no reason to not just, you know, activate as many pieces as possible. And I was gonna say I can send his knight away with this if I wanted to. There is this scary move, I think. which reinforces the diagonal. So when we go like this, I guess he's got 2 knights protecting that square though. Right, so if I take here, he takes back. We're not in a position to recapture necessarily. So I don't like that. I will trade my bishop for his knight. Just because we have such a big material advantage, as they say, you know, the fancy lingo, right? Material. But because we're so far ahead in material, I'm happy to like just open up the map quite a bit. And what can he do if we threaten with something like this? Right? I think that's just really good. Or we can go like this. And we're threatening the rook directly, but then there's also this, right? There's an X-ray on the king through the queen and the pawn. Sure, that, you know, we knew that was a move they could do. But what we can do as well, you know, I can just pull it back for now if I wanted. What would be a better play? Do we have time to think? We may have some, but I think I would rather keep my pressure here in the center. I don't love that move. I just don't know exactly what to play, and this keeps us in a similar position where it's reinforced, oops, by the rook. And now I'm thinking bring the rook here. What do you guys think? There's also this. Wait. If we do this, he can only defend by sending the knight in. And then we can just take his pawn for free. Let's do this. I do like to just take free shit. You know, if I don't know necessarily how to like finish an endgame, sure, he can also block with that, but then we can take this. And we're still now pinning the rook. Right? So that means if I do something like this, sorry, if I lift this rook to the front, could be pretty scary. But are we scared about anything he can do with that? I don't think so. So what if I just try to lift my rook like this? I don't love these moves where, you know, it takes a lot of time to position rooks. Sometimes I'm still very awkward with positioning my rooks in a way that doesn't fully just lose a turn. So we knew he could take that with the bishop, but we're not too worried because now we got this. And if we go here, he can no longer take with the king, and he has to move one way or another. And then when he does, we can take his rook. Or, you know, if we don't want to lose the rook, we can think of something else, but we can always sacrifice the rook for the knight, and then we're just like simplifying a great deal. I think that may be some of the easiest ways we have to go about it. Okay, so now there's the threat on the rook, but I'm about to move it, so I don't really care, right? So if we go here, do we like that? I think we like that because he can't take. He can take with the king, but he can't take with the rook, right? No, sorry, he can't take with the king. He has to go to this square. Or to that square, yeah. But now, well, there could be that. But I'm now aware of, you know, my options. I'm not too sure. So if we actually just go here, he can't take. So we go here, he takes with horse. We take back. He takes, and then we have rook with a lot of advantages potentially. Let's do this. So this is where I'm really out of my depth. When it comes to end games, this is the big thing I have to practice, right? How to convert wins when you're ahead material. And you got to remember time is also a factor. We are running out of time. We're trying to like close the prison on the king in some ways. So the king, you know, doesn't have a lot of squares he can move, right? Okay, yeah, that's a fair play. Now if we take here, it's mate, my dudes. Ha, that's a win. That's so this is kind of the pattern I was looking for, where you have the rook and the queen to each side of the king, and they like slowly close up the position there. So I'm pretty happy about that one. Tell me what you guys think in the comments down below. I think we're progressing quite a bit. I'm starting to see some patterns. If we go back to the board real quick, just to show you one, you know, interesting thing in this game that I've picked up on this week is this move. This move for me is kind of pivotal. At least now it's something that I've used to win quite a lot of games. You can't always pull it off, but I am a lot of the time I'm looking for this kind of square. So, you know, C7, or then it could also be king side. But in this case, you have this diagonal open because of how we've played the opening. And if you place your knight here, you have a fork on the king. So, well, let's get to that step, right? He actually lets me do this, where I have a fork on the king and the rook. So he can't take with queen because there's this, a lot of arrows. But hopefully you're with me here, right? Which then causes him to ultimately, well, he makes a mistake. You know, really, you're just gonna like move your king, basically, and then you can recover some pieces, but you're still gonna lose the rook in this particular fork. He makes the wrong choice and he ends up losing the queen, which is way worse, right? So yeah, this is one of those like big things to be wary of, this square here. And then the other thing that I've learned is to never move the pawn on f3. So, you know, we're playing white. The pawn to the right of your king, because, you know, let's say that we play this, oops. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, let's say that we play that. We open this nasty diagonal where pieces can access our king. And I've seen some people make that mistake, and I've taken advantage of it, so I've also learned from it. But hopefully those thoughts also help you in your journey. If you're really good at chess, hey, maybe contact me and we can do some co-op sessions where we go through movements together. You could even participate here in the videos if you like. But I'll leave you with that. I hope you have a great rest of your week. And as always, thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.